Hold on to your lug nuts, folks, because we are sounding off. All right, folks, this is probably the only podcast where you have heard this guy's name. Quin Houff, public enemy number one. Bart, what is going on?
We got to talk about it. Quin Houff, my gosh. We've been talking about Quin Houff, which no one does, for the entirety of this podcast because this guy has literally no experience, and he's driving a cup car. So you've got people like, we'll just explain what happened. So he's going around the track. He's no less than 10 laps down at this point. He's not contending. He's in he's been really poor equipment in a lower tier team. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a chance. And then you take into the fact that he has literally no experience in any kind of NASCAR car to be out there in the first place. He hasn't earned that spot, in my opinion. So
I agree.
He's going around the track. He's at the top of the racetrack. And all of a sudden he decides to just dart down to pit. But he didn't listen to his spotter. His spotter wasn't there, maybe in the bathroom. He claims his mirror was knocked off. But he had no regard to if there was any cars that were about to pass him. And he came down right into the quarter panel of Christopher Bell. And then he knocked Matty D. And so everybody's kind of just like flabbergasted what happened here. Rookie mistake, right?
Wrong. No, that's not. I think Brad Keselowski and Matty D have both hit on something. You should have to, and you and I have talked about it, you should have to be able to graduate and move up. There should be something that says you are allowed to move up. I mean, we've made memes about the guy, and like, I hope I'm not hurting his feelings, but good Lord, you haven't done anything. You've run minimal races in the feeder series. You haven't shown that you have what it takes to even run in those series. And somehow you get a seat in a cup car. And Matty D said it was just zero awareness on his part. This wasn't like the nose of his car or he came over in the tail end of his car. It was like he banged into the door. So a lack of awareness, and I think Brad Keselowski and Matty D both said it best. There's got to be something that eliminates that, because that's not a rookie mistake. That is just that is a lack of experience. That is somebody who doesn't know how to drive the car mistake. It's just unexcusable to me.
I was very surprised, number one, that Matty D went after him with harsh words on social media, because Matty D is quite possibly the most pleasant person, no matter the situation. So to see that, it just shows the gravity of how extreme this mistake was.
Right.
In regards to Brad Keselowski's comments and making sure that there's some sort of system to hold people accountable and potentially be demoted if they make a number of mistakes in the top tier cup, similar to, I think, something exists in F1. I don't particularly agree that something like that should exist. I think it is ultimately up to the teams to be accountable for recruiting top tier drivers to race their cars. My opinion is that team shouldn't exist in the Cup Series at all. And I've made that point before. They should not be there. They could be in Xfinity, but they could be in a truck team, and but they should not be there. They're not anywhere close to winning cars, even lead lap cars. There's no purpose for them to be there, because things like this happen. They should not have recruited a driver with less than 10 starts in Xfinity Series, less than that in K&N and ARCA.
He might have 10 starts combined. He has a little over 10 starts combined in all of them. And then when you get down to the ARCA, he wasn't performing well in the, I think, less than 50 races that he ran there. I mean, just no experience.
Yeah, whatever modified division he was running in, he was like, and he got some top fives, I believe, is what I was reading.
Yeah.
So it's not the fact that there should be some sort of system to say, hey, Quin Houff, you're demoted because you made this mistake, because any driver could make some sort of mistake all the time. And Dave Moody brought this up on Twitter, and he said, I know I'm going to hate myself for asking this, but if this was the case, who would be some drivers that would have been demoted? And it was like everybody's chance to say Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, like all the drivers that wouldn't need to be demoted. I think Danica Patrick was the only one that I was like, well, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
So I don't necessarily think that should exist, but I do think the team should be responsible for recruiting top-tier drivers. And if you look at all the other rookies in his class, they have at least 100 starts, if not 200-plus starts in Xfinity or Truck Series. They have earned their seat there. They have paid their dues, and they have shown themselves to be promising drivers to succeed in Cup, and that's why they're there with good teams. So you just shouldn't be there, and that team shouldn't be there, and that's my whole opinion on it.
Yeah, I completely agree. When we had that conversation and we were going through the starts and parks and those lap cars, I said I think there was a place for some of these guys to step up to the next level, but it's gone beyond that. And it has become a hobby for these team owners to run a car in the Cup Series for no other reason than to say that they do it. Because if you actually had winning at the forefront of your mind, there's no way you're putting Quin Houff behind the wheel. And I think the perfect example is when we talk about the comparison between Formula One. There's 20 cars there, 2 cars per team, and you have to have the best in order to be able to compete. And you lose your job, or you see teams getting cycled out of there because they're like, we can't afford to continue doing this just to be in 20th place or to be in 18th place. I think NASCAR could adapt that. I don't see them cutting the field anytime soon, but there's got to be some way to de-incentivize these guys who have a hobby of owning a racing team for, tens of millions of dollars. That's, this isn't a hobby sport. Professional sports are not hobby sports. And you don't see it in any other professional sports league where you just let these guys come in and essentially ruin a race. And it really did. It ruined a race for Matty D, who is trying to make a push to compete for a championship with a new team after he got stepped on last year. Brad Keselowski, who is year after year competing for championships with a solid team. Those people should not be able to be impacted by people who have no stake in it other than, hey, I enjoy doing this. So
yeah, you see some degree of regulation when you look at NFL teams and NBA teams on who's able to own those teams and run those franchises. And you don't see that with NASCAR. There's no regulations whatsoever in regard to who can own a team and be a team in NASCAR. And I think that's just appalling.
Yeah.
To no end. That should not be the case. And I think this topic is not new, and it's just going to keep coming around until
Quin Houff isn't wrecking leaders in the field, or until something like this stops happening on a weekly basis where a caution's brought out. We can go back and we can look at the past 10 races and bring up a situation where a lapped car from an underfunded team or a team that is running a partial schedule has created an issue where it has cost somebody up front a position or stage points or playoff points. So it's just getting to the point where it's gone on too long. And I think the only way that they're going to change it is if enough people continue to get pissed off about it. And now the drivers, Mr. Positive himself, Matty D, is speaking up. So hopefully they start listening to that. So maybe it'll take Steve Phelps to do it. He's doing a good job of listening to everybody.
Yeah, and one more point on this. All those lap drivers that we talked about in that episode, most of them have been around a while. Some even made it to really high quality teams like JJ Yeley and Reed Sorensen. We saw those folks get up into highly funded teams, and they just didn't really cut it. And so they're just kind of shaking it out back there in the back, trying to still be competitive and race, and they still want to be in it. Quin Houff's on a different level. No experience, shouldn't be there in the story.
Woo! It felt good to get that out there, ladies and gentlemen. we have to talk about some of these things and get them off our chest, and we will be bringing those to you in our Sounding Off segments. As always, we thank you for tuning in and following the Going In Tight, Coming Out Loose podcast. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter at goingintight_pod, or find us on Spotify, Apple, any major podcasting platform. And we look forward to talking to you all next time.